The search for the wicked witch.
В поисках злой ведьмы.
The search for the wicked witch. Some of the monkeys seized the Tin Woodman.
Несколько обезьян схватили Железного Дровосека.
Some of the monkeys seized the Tin Woodman. And carried him through the air.
И понесли его по воздуху.
And carried him through the air. Until they were over a country.
Пока не оказались над местностью.
Until they were over a country. Thickly covered with sharp rocks.
Густо покрытой острыми скалами.
Thickly covered with sharp rocks. Here they dropped the poor woodman.
Здесь они бросили бедного дровосека.
Here they dropped the poor woodman. Who fell a great distance to the rocks.
Который упал с большого расстояния на скалы.
Who fell a great distance to the rocks. Where he lay so battered and dented.
Где он лежал избитый и помятый.
Where he lay so battered and dented. That he could neither move nor groan.
Что не мог ни пошевелиться, ни застонать.
That he could neither move nor groan. Others of the monkeys caught the scarecrow.
Другие обезьяны схватили страшилу.
Others of the monkeys caught the scarecrow. And with their long fingers.
И своими длинными пальцами.
And with their long fingers. Pulled all of the straw out of his clothes and head.
Вытащили всю солому из его одежды и головы.
Pulled all of the straw out of his clothes and head. They made his hat and boots and clothes.
Они связали его шляпу, ботинки и одежду.
They made his hat and boots and clothes. Into a small bundle.
В небольшой узел.
Into a small bundle. And threw it into the top branches of a tall tree.
И бросили его на верхние ветви высокого дерева.
And threw it into the top branches of a tall tree. The remaining monkeys.
Оставшиеся обезьяны.
The remaining monkeys. Threw pieces of stout rope around the lion.
Накинули на льва куски толстой веревки.
Threw pieces of stout rope around the lion. And wound many coils about his body.
И обмотали множество витков вокруг его тела.
And wound many coils about his body. And head and legs, until he was unable to bite.
Головы и ног, пока он не смог ни кусаться.
And head and legs, until he was unable to bite. Or scratch or struggle in any way.
Ни царапаться, ни сопротивляться.
Or scratch or struggle in any way. Then they lifted him up.
Тогда они подняли его.
Then they lifted him up. And flew away with him to the witch's castle.
И улетели с ним в замок ведьмы.
And flew away with him to the witch's castle. Where he was placed in a small yard.
Где его поместили в небольшой дворик.
Where he was placed in a small yard. With a high iron fence around it.
Обнесенный высокой железной оградой.
With a high iron fence around it. So that he could not escape.
Чтобы он не мог сбежать.
So that he could not escape. But Dorothy they did not harm at all.
А вот Дороти они совсем не навредили.
But Dorothy they did not harm at all. She stood, with Toto in her arms.
Она стояла с Тотошкой на руках.
She stood, with Toto in her arms. Watching the sad fate of her comrades.
Наблюдая за печальной судьбой своих товарищей.
Watching the sad fate of her comrades. And thinking it would soon be her turn.
И думая, что скоро настанет и ее черед.
And thinking it would soon be her turn. The leader of the winged monkeys flew up to her.
К ней подлетел предводитель крылатых обезьян.
The leader of the winged monkeys flew up to her. His long, hairy arms stretched out.
Раскинув длинные волосатые руки.
His long, hairy arms stretched out. And his ugly face grinning terribly.
И страшно ухмыляясь на безобразном лице.
And his ugly face grinning terribly. But he saw the mark of the good witch's kiss.
Но он увидел след от поцелуя доброй ведьмы.
But he saw the mark of the good witch's kiss. Upon her forehead and stopped short.
На ее лбу и резко остановился.
Upon her forehead and stopped short. Motioning the others not to touch her.
Жестом приказав остальным не прикасаться к ней.
Motioning the others not to touch her. We dare not harm this little girl.
Мы не смеем причинить вред этой маленькой девочке.
We dare not harm this little girl. He said to them.
Сказал он им.
He said to them. For she is protected by the power of good.
Ибо она защищена силой добра.
For she is protected by the power of good. And that is greater than the power of evil.
А она больше, чем сила зла.
And that is greater than the power of evil. All we can do is.
Все, что мы можем сделать.
All we can do is. To carry her to the castle of the wicked witch.
Это отнести ее в замок злой ведьмы.
To carry her to the castle of the wicked witch. And leave her there.
И оставить там.
And leave her there. So, carefully and gently.
Итак, осторожно и нежно.
So, carefully and gently. They lifted Dorothy in their arms.
Они подняли Дороти на руки.
They lifted Dorothy in their arms. And carried her swiftly through the air.
И быстро понесли ее по воздуху.
And carried her swiftly through the air. Until they came to the castle.
Пока не достигли замка.
Until they came to the castle. Where they set her down upon the front doorstep.
Где поставили ее на пороге.
Where they set her down upon the front doorstep. Then the leader said to the witch.
Тогда вождь сказал ведьме.
Then the leader said to the witch. We have obeyed you as far as we were able.
Мы выполнили ваш приказ, насколько могли.
We have obeyed you as far as we were able. The Tin Woodman and the Scarecrow are destroyed.
Железный Дровосек и Страшила уничтожены.
The Tin Woodman and the Scarecrow are destroyed. And the lion is tied up in your yard.
А лев привязан у вас во дворе.
And the lion is tied up in your yard. The little girl we dare not harm.
Маленькой девочке мы не смеем причинить вреда.
The little girl we dare not harm. Nor the dog she carries in her arms.
Ни собаки, которую она носит на руках.
Nor the dog she carries in her arms. Your power over our band is now ended.
Твоя власть над нашим отрядом закончилась.
Your power over our band is now ended. And you will never see us again.
И ты больше никогда нас не увидишь.
And you will never see us again. Then all the winged monkeys, with much laughing.
Затем все крылатые обезьяны с громким смехом.
Then all the winged monkeys, with much laughing. And chattering and noise, flew into the air.
Болтовнёй и шумом взлетели в воздух.
And chattering and noise, flew into the air. And were soon out of sight.
И вскоре скрылись из виду.
And were soon out of sight. The wicked witch was both surprised and worried.
Злая ведьма одновременно и удивилась, и встревожилась.
The wicked witch was both surprised and worried. When she saw the mark on Dorothy's forehead.
Увидев отметину на лбу Дороти.
When she saw the mark on Dorothy's forehead. For she knew well.
Ведь она прекрасно знала.
For she knew well. That neither the winged monkeys nor she, herself.
Что ни крылатые обезьяны, ни она сама.
That neither the winged monkeys nor she, herself. Dare hurt the girl in any way.
Не посмеют причинить девушке никакого вреда.
Dare hurt the girl in any way. She looked down at Dorothy's feet.
Она посмотрела на ноги Дороти.
She looked down at Dorothy's feet. And seeing the silver shoes.
И, увидев серебряные туфли.
And seeing the silver shoes. Began to tremble with fear, for she knew.
Задрожала от страха, потому что знала.
Began to tremble with fear, for she knew. What a powerful charm belonged to them.
Какая могущественная магия принадлежала им.
What a powerful charm belonged to them. At first the witch was tempted to run away from Dorothy.
Сначала у ведьмы было желание убежать от Дороти.
At first the witch was tempted to run away from Dorothy. But she happened to look into the child's eyes.
Но она случайно посмотрела в глаза ребенка.
But she happened to look into the child's eyes. And saw how simple the soul behind them was.
И увидела, как проста душа за ними.
And saw how simple the soul behind them was. And that the little girl did not know of the wonderful power.
И что маленькая девочка не знала о чудесной силе.
and that the little girl did not know of the wonderful power the silver shoes gave her.
которую дали ей серебряные туфли.
The silver shoes gave her. So the wicked witch laughed to herself, and thought.
Тогда злая ведьма засмеялась про себя и подумала.
So the wicked witch laughed to herself, and thought. I can still make her my slave.
Я все еще могу сделать ее своей рабыней.
I can still make her my slave. For she does not know.
Потому что она не знает.
For she does not know. How to use her power.
Как использовать свою силу.
How to use her power. Then she said to Dorothy, harshly and severely.
Затем она сказала Дороти резко и сурово.
Then she said to Dorothy, harshly and severely. Come with me.
Иди со мной.
Come with me. And see that you mind everything I tell you.
И смотри, не возражай ничему, что я тебе говорю.
And see that you mind everything I tell you. For if you do not, I will make an end of you.
Иначе я прикончу тебя.
For if you do not, I will make an end of you. As I did of the Tin Woodman and the Scarecrow.
Как прикончила Железного Дровосека и Страшилу.
As I did of the Tin Woodman and the Scarecrow. Dorothy followed her.
Дороти последовала за ней.
Dorothy followed her. Through many of the beautiful rooms in her castle.
Через множество красивых комнат в ее замке.
Through many of the beautiful rooms in her castle. Until they came to the kitchen.
Пока они не пришли на кухню.
Until they came to the kitchen. Where the witch bade her clean the pots and kettles.
Где ведьма велела ей мыть кастрюли и чайники.
Where the witch bade her clean the pots and kettles. And sweep the floor and keep the fire fed with wood.
Подметать пол и поддерживать огонь дровами.
And sweep the floor and keep the fire fed with wood. Dorothy went to work meekly.
Дороти покорно принялась за работу.
Dorothy went to work meekly. With her mind made up to work as hard as she could.
Решив работать изо всех сил.
With her mind made up to work as hard as she could. For she was glad.
Ибо она была рада.
For she was glad. The wicked witch had decided not to kill her.
Что злая ведьма решила не убивать ее.
The wicked witch had decided not to kill her. With Dorothy hard at work.
Поскольку Дороти усердно работала.
With Dorothy hard at work. The witch thought she would go into the courtyard.
Ведьма подумала, что она пойдет во двор.
The witch thought she would go into the courtyard. And harness the cowardly lion like a horse.
И запряжет трусливого льва, как лошадь.
And harness the cowardly lion like a horse. It would amuse her, she was sure.
Она была уверена, что ее развлечет.
It would amuse her, she was sure. To make him draw her chariot.
Если она заставит его тянуть ее колесницу.
To make him draw her chariot. Whenever she wished to go to drive.
Всякий раз, когда ей захочется покататься.
Whenever she wished to go to drive. But as she opened the gate.
Но когда она открыла ворота.
But as she opened the gate. The lion gave a loud roar.
Лев издал громкий рык.
The lion gave a loud roar. And bounded at her so fiercely.
И прыгнул на нее так яростно.
And bounded at her so fiercely. That the witch was afraid, and ran out.
Что ведьма испугалась, выбежала.
That the witch was afraid, and ran out. And shut the gate again.
И снова закрыла ворота.
And shut the gate again. If I cannot harness you.
Если я не могу запрячь тебя.
If I cannot harness you. Said the witch to the lion.
Сказала ведьма льву.
Said the witch to the lion. Speaking through the bars of the gate.
Говоря через решетку ворот.
Speaking through the bars of the gate. I can starve you.
Я могу заморить тебя голодом.
I can starve you. You shall have nothing to eat.
Тебе нечего будет есть.
You shall have nothing to eat. Until you do as I wish.
Пока ты не сделаешь то, что я хочу.
Until you do as I wish. So after that she took no food to the imprisoned lion.
Поэтому после этого она не давала еды заточенному льву.
So after that she took no food to the imprisoned lion. But every day she came to the gate.
Но каждый день она подходила к воротам.
But every day she came to the gate. At noon and asked.
В полдень и спрашивала.
At noon and asked. Are you ready to be harnessed like a horse?
Готов ли ты быть запряженным, как лошадь?
Are you ready to be harnessed like a horse? And the lion would answer.
И лев отвечал.
And the lion would answer. No. If you come in this yard, I will bite you.
Нет. Если ты войдешь в этот двор, я тебя укушу.
No. If you come in this yard, I will bite you. The reason the lion did not have to do.
Причина, по которой льву не приходилось поступать так.
The reason the lion did not have to do. As the witch wished was.
Как хотела ведьма, заключалась в том.
As the witch wished was. That every night, while the woman was asleep.
Что каждую ночь, пока женщина спала.
That every night, while the woman was asleep. Dorothy carried him food from the cupboard.
Дороти приносила ему еду из буфета.
Dorothy carried him food from the cupboard. After he had eaten, he would lie down on his bed of straw.
Поев, он ложился на свою соломенную подстилку.
After he had eaten, he would lie down on his bed of straw. And Dorothy would lie beside him.
А Дороти ложилась рядом с ним.
And Dorothy would lie beside him. And put her head on his soft, shaggy mane.
И клала голову на его мягкую косматую гриву.
And put her head on his soft, shaggy mane. While they talked of their troubles.
Пока они говорили о своих бедах.
While they talked of their troubles. And tried to plan some way to escape.
И пытались найти способ спастись.
And tried to plan some way to escape. But they could find no way to get out of the castle.
Но они никак не могли выбраться из замка.
But they could find no way to get out of the castle. For it was constantly guarded by the yellow winkies.
Потому что его постоянно охраняли желтые мигуны.
For it was constantly guarded by the yellow winkies. Who were the slaves of the wicked witch?
Которые были рабами злой ведьмы.
Who were the slaves of the wicked witch? And too afraid of her not to do as she told them.
И слишком боялись ее, чтобы не выполнить ее приказ.
And too afraid of her not to do as she told them. The girl had to work hard during the day.
Днем девочке приходилось много работать.
The girl had to work hard during the day. And often the witch threatened.
И часто ведьма угрожала.
And often the witch threatened. To beat her with the same old umbrella.
Избить ее тем самым старым зонтиком.
To beat her with the same old umbrella. She always carried in her hand.
Который она всегда носила в руке.
She always carried in her hand. But, in truth, she did not dare to strike Dorothy.
Но, по правде говоря, она не осмелилась ударить Дороти.
But, in truth, she did not dare to strike Dorothy. Because of the mark upon her forehead.
Из-за отметки на ее лбу.
Because of the mark upon her forehead. The child did not know this.
Ребенок этого не знал.
The child did not know this. And was full of fear for herself and Toto.
И был полон страха за себя и Татошку.
And was full of fear for herself and Toto. Once the witch struck Toto a blow with her umbrella.
Однажды ведьма ударила Татошку зонтом.
Once the witch struck Toto a blow with her umbrella. And the brave little dog flew at her.
И смелая собачонка налетела на нее.
And the brave little dog flew at her. And bit her leg in return.
И в ответ укусила за ногу.
And bit her leg in return. The witch did not bleed where she was bitten.
Ведьма не истекала кровью там, где ее укусили.
The witch did not bleed where she was bitten. For she was so wicked.
Потому что она была так зла.
For she was so wicked. That the blood in her had dried up many years before.
Что кровь в ней высохла много лет назад.
That the blood in her had dried up many years before. Dorothy's life became very sad.
Жизнь Дороти стала очень печальной.
Dorothy's life became very sad. As she grew to understand.
Когда она поняла.
As she grew to understand. That it would be harder than ever.
Что будет труднее, чем когда-либо.
That it would be harder than ever. To get back to Kansas and Aunt Em again.
Снова вернуться в Канзас к тете М.
To get back to Kansas and Aunt Em again. Sometimes she would cry bitterly for hours.
Иногда она часами горько плакала.
Sometimes she would cry bitterly for hours. With Toto sitting at her feet.
А Татошка сидел у ее ног.
With Toto sitting at her feet. And looking into her face, whining dismally to show.
Смотрел ей в лицо и уныло скулил, показывая.
And looking into her face, whining dismally to show. How sorry he was for his little mistress.
Как ему жаль свою маленькую хозяйку.
How sorry he was for his little mistress. Toto did not really care whether he was in Kansas.
Татошку не особо заботило, в Канзасе ли он.
Toto did not really care whether he was in Kansas. Or the land of Oz so long as Dorothy was with him.
Или в стране Оз, пока Дороти была с ним.
Or the land of Oz so long as Dorothy was with him. But he knew the little girl was unhappy.
Но он знал, что маленькая девочка несчастна.
But he knew the little girl was unhappy. And that made him unhappy too.
И это делало его тоже несчастным.
And that made him unhappy too. Now the wicked witch had a great longing.
Теперь злая ведьма очень хотела.
Now the wicked witch had a great longing. To have for her own the silver shoes.
Получить серебряные туфли.
To have for her own the silver shoes. Which the girl always wore.
Которые всегда носила девушка.
Which the girl always wore. Her bees and her crows and her wolves.
Ее пчелы, ее вороны и ее волки.
Her bees and her crows and her wolves. Were lying in heaps and drying up.
Лежали кучками и сохли.
Were lying in heaps and drying up. And she had used up all the power of the golden cap.
И она израсходовала всю силу золотой шапки.
And she had used up all the power of the golden cap. But if she could only get hold of the silver shoes.
Но если бы она только смогла заполучить серебряные туфли.
But if she could only get hold of the silver shoes. They would give her more power.
Они дали бы ей больше силы.
They would give her more power. Than all the other things she had lost.
Чем все остальные вещи, которые она потеряла.
Than all the other things she had lost. She watched Dorothy carefully, to see.
Она внимательно наблюдала за Дороти.
She watched Dorothy carefully, to see. If she ever took off her shoes.
Не сняла ли она когда-нибудь туфли?
If she ever took off her shoes. Thinking she might steal them.
Думая, что может их украсть.
Thinking she might steal them. But the child was so proud.
Но девочка так гордилась.
But the child was so proud. Of her pretty shoes.
Своими красивыми туфельками.
Of her pretty shoes. That she never took them off except at night.
Что снимала их только на ночь.
That she never took them off except at night. And when she took her bath.
И когда принимала ванну.
And when she took her bath. The witch was too much afraid of the dark.
Ведьма слишком боялась темноты.
The witch was too much afraid of the dark. To dare go in Dorothy's room at night.
Чтобы осмелиться зайти ночью в комнату Дороти.
To dare go in Dorothy's room at night. To take the shoes.
Чтобы взять туфли.
To take the shoes. And her dread of water was greater than her fear of the dark.
А ее боязнь воды была сильнее страха темноты.
And her dread of water was greater than her fear of the dark. So she never came near.
Поэтому она никогда не подходила к ней.
So she never came near. When Dorothy was bathing.
Когда Дороти купалась.
When Dorothy was bathing. Indeed, the old witch never touched water.
Действительно, старая ведьма никогда не касалась воды.
Indeed, the old witch never touched water. Nor ever let water touch her in any way.
И никогда не позволяла воде касаться себя.
Nor ever let water touch her in any way. But the wicked creature was very cunning.
Но злая тварь оказалась очень хитрой.
But the wicked creature was very cunning. And she finally thought of a trick.
И она, наконец, придумала уловку.
And she finally thought of a trick. That would give her what she wanted.
Которая дала бы ей то, что она хотела.
That would give her what she wanted. She placed a bar of iron.
Она поставила железный брусок.
She placed a bar of iron. In the middle of the kitchen floor.
Посреди кухонного пола.
In the middle of the kitchen floor. And then by her magic arts.
А затем с помощью своего магического искусства.
And then by her magic arts. Made the iron invisible to human eyes.
Сделала железо невидимым для человеческого глаза.
Made the iron invisible to human eyes. So that when Dorothy walked across the floor.
Так что, когда Дороти шла по полу.
So that when Dorothy walked across the floor. She stumbled over the bar.
Она споткнулась о стойку.
She stumbled over the bar. Not being able to see it.
Не видя ее.
Not being able to see it. And fell at full length.
И упала во весь рост.
And fell at full length. She was not much hurt.
Она не сильно пострадала.
She was not much hurt. But in her fall one of the silver shoes came off.
Но при падении одна из серебряных туфлей слетела.
But in her fall one of the silver shoes came off. And before she could reach it.
И прежде чем она успела до него дотянуться.
And before she could reach it. The witch had snatched it away.
Ведьма выхватила его.
The witch had snatched it away. And put it on her own skinny foot.
И надела на свою тощую ногу.
And put it on her own skinny foot. The wicked woman was greatly pleased.
Злая женщина была очень довольна.
The wicked woman was greatly pleased. With the success of her trick.
Успехом своего трюка, поскольку.
With the success of her trick. For as long as she had one of the shoes.
Пока у нее была одна из туфель.
For as long as she had one of the shoes. She owned half the power of their charm.
Она обладала половиной силы их магии.
She owned half the power of their charm. And Dorothy could not use it against her.
И Дороти не могла бы использовать это против нее.
And Dorothy could not use it against her. Even had she known how to do so.
Даже если бы знала, как это сделать.
Even had she known how to do so. The little girl, seeing.
Маленькая девочка, увидев.
The little girl, seeing. She had lost one of her pretty shoes.
Что потеряла одну из своих красивых туфель.
She had lost one of her pretty shoes. Grew angry, and said to the witch.
Рассердилась и сказала ведьме.
Grew angry, and said to the witch. Give me back my shoe.
Отдай мне мою туфельку.
Give me back my shoe. I will not.
Не отдам.
I will not. Retorted the witch.
Ответила ведьма.
Retorted the witch. For it is now my shoe, and not yours.
Потому что теперь это моя туфля, а не твоя.
For it is now my shoe, and not yours. You are a wicked creature.
Ты злая?
You are a wicked creature. Cried Dorothy.
Воскликнула Дороти.
Cried Dorothy. You have no right to take my shoe from me.
Тебе нельзя отбирать у меня мой ботинок.
You have no right to take my shoe from me. I shall keep it, just the same.
Я все равно заберу его.
I shall keep it, just the same. Said the witch, laughing at her.
Сказала ведьма, смеясь над ней.
Said the witch, laughing at her. And someday I shall get the other one from you, too.
А когда-нибудь я заберу и другой у тебя.
And someday I shall get the other one from you, too. This made Dorothy so very angry.
Это так разозлило Дороти.
This made Dorothy so very angry. That she picked up the bucket of water that stood near.
Что она подняла стоявшее рядом ведро с водой.
That she picked up the bucket of water that stood near. And dashed it over the witch.
И выплеснула его на ведьму.
And dashed it over the witch. Wetting her from head to foot.
Намочив ее с головы до ног.
Wetting her from head to foot. Instantly the wicked woman gave a loud cry of fear.
Мгновенно злая женщина издала громкий крик страха.
Instantly the wicked woman gave a loud cry of fear. And then, as Dorothy looked at her in wonder.
А затем, когда Дороти посмотрела на нее в изумлении.
And then, as Dorothy looked at her in wonder. The witch began to shrink and fall away.
Ведьма начала сжиматься и падать.
The witch began to shrink and fall away. See what you have done.
Смотри, что ты сделала.
See what you have done. She screamed.
Закричала она.
She screamed. In a minute I shall melt away.
Через минуту я растаю.
In a minute I shall melt away. I'm very sorry, indeed.
Мне действительно очень жаль.
I'm very sorry, indeed. Said Dorothy.
Сказала Дороти.
Said Dorothy. Who was truly frightened to see.
Которая была искренне напугана, увидев.
Who was truly frightened to see. The witch actually melting away.
Что ведьма действительно тает.
The witch actually melting away. Like brown sugar before her very eyes.
Как коричневый сахар, прямо у нее на глазах.
Like brown sugar before her very eyes. Didn't you know water would be the end of me?
Разве ты не знала, что вода погубит меня?
Didn't you know water would be the end of me? Asked the witch, in a wailing, despairing voice.
Спросила ведьма плачущим, отчаянным голосом.
Asked the witch, in a wailing, despairing voice. Of course not.
Конечно, нет.
Of course not. Answered Dorothy.
Ответила Дороти.
Answered Dorothy. How should I?
Как мне быть?
How should I? Well, in a few minutes I shall be all melted.
Ведь, через несколько минут я вся растаю.
Well, in a few minutes I shall be all melted. And you will have the castle to yourself.
И замок будет в твоем распоряжении.
And you will have the castle to yourself. I have been wicked in my day.
Я была злой в свое время.
I have been wicked in my day. But I never thought.
Но я никогда не думала.
But I never thought. A little girl like you would.
Что такая маленькая девочка, как ты?
A little girl like you would. Ever be able to melt me.
Когда-либо сможет растопить меня.
Ever be able to melt me. And end my wicked deeds.
И положить конец моим злым делам.
And end my wicked deeds. Look out, here I go.
Видишь, мне все.
Look out, here I go. With these words the witch fell down.
С этими словами ведьма рухнула.
With these words the witch fell down. In a brown, melted, shapeless mass.
Коричневой, расплавленной, бесформенной массой.
In a brown, melted, shapeless mass. And began to spread over the clean boards of the kitchen floor.
И стала растекаться по чистым доскам кухонного пола.
And began to spread over the clean boards of the kitchen floor. Seeing that she had really melted away to nothing.
Увидев, что она действительно испарилась.
Seeing that she had really melted away to nothing. Dorothy drew another bucket of water.
Дороти набрала еще одно ведро воды.
Dorothy drew another bucket of water. And threw it over the mess.
И вылила его на остатки.
And threw it over the mess. She then swept it all out the door.
Затем она вынесла все это за дверь.
She then swept it all out the door. After picking out the silver shoe.
Подобрав серебряную туфлю.
After picking out the silver shoe. Which was all that was left of the old woman.
Которая была всем, что осталось от старухи.
Which was all that was left of the old woman. She cleaned and dried it with a cloth.
Она очистила ее, вытерла тряпкой.
She cleaned and dried it with a cloth. And put it on her foot again.
И снова надела на ногу.
And put it on her foot again. Then, being at last.
Затем, получив, наконец.
Then, being at last. Free to do as she chose.
Свободу делать то, что она хотела.
Free to do as she chose. She ran out to the courtyard to tell the lion.
Она выбежала во двор, чтобы сказать льву.
She ran out to the courtyard to tell the lion. That the wicked witch of the west had come to an end.
Что злой ведьме Запада пришел конец.
That the wicked witch of the west had come to an end. And that they were no longer prisoners in a strange land.
И что они больше не пленники в чужой стране.
And that they were no longer prisoners in a strange land. The search for the wicked witch.
В поисках злой ведьмы.